At AQA, we work with the UK's largest teacher network to shape the future of assessment. With teachers for students, we ask questions today that matter tomorrow.
Get a head start on your fresh start with Bloomsbury Education. With 30% off all our books till the end of September, this back-to-school sale is your chance to stock up on CPD titles, classroom resource banks, lesson ideas, and practical solutions to every teacher's pain points. Browse titles on sale from the Like a Ninja series, The Week Junior, and Let's Talk Picture Books. Perfect for the new school year. From leadership to inclusivity and maths to mental health, Bloomsbury Education has books for every step of your teaching journey. Welcome back to school at bloomsbury.com/back-to-school sale.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Kapow Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to kapowprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles.
Welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Tonight, we're going to look at teacher standards and how we help our ECT succeed. We were really excited about doing this because it's the start of term. There's loads of ECTs out there. There's loads of mentors out there. And so luckily we haven't had to postpone too late. We can still get in early on this one. Claire, I think I hear you. Are you there, Claire?
Let's hope so.
Yay. How are you feeling, Claire? You're all right?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, been a long, busy week, but yeah, I'll be all right.
How's the start of the year been for you, Claire?
It's actually been a real joy. Like, it has been so lovely to go back and to welcome children back. So I think there's something about third year, which is a really nice place to be in leadership. So the first year, you're just getting to know everything about it, and you're kind of finding out who everyone is and getting to know families and children. And then the second year, you go, yeah, I know where we need to take the school, and you know how you're going to do it in terms of the right people to find and what that looks like. So you start to kind of really knuckle down and get some good plans. And then the third year, just to be able to continue the natural evolution of that, and just to be able to continue that journey, and to already know lots of people. We've had no new staff, which is amazing.
Wow.
All the staff are there still, all the children and families. Obviously, welcome lots of new families. Said goodbye to some Year 6 families who left. But actually, it just feels like a really great place to be. And we've just had a really calm first few weeks. So, yeah, been good, thank you. How about yourself?
Very nice. Yes, it's been really good, really positive. I've really just enjoyed getting back into the mix. Not been without these hiccups, but it's the start of term. Things happen.
Absolutely.
But it's been superb. It's been really, really good. Once again, it's like slipping into a pair of shoes and like going for it. Do you know what I mean? Putting your trainers on, getting on that.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. I've really enjoyed it, and it's really nice. Have you got any ECTs in your school, Claire?
So we did. Before I started, I appointed an ECT. So she did her first 2 years. So she's now not an ECT. She is now is it RQT, recently qualified teacher?
Yeah,
I think that's what
RQT,
they call it now.
Let's
Get with the lingo. So we actually don't anymore. So I've seen an ECT. Well, I've seen a few ECTs through. But yeah, my most recent experience is we've had an absolutely phenomenal ECT, who is still with us, obviously. But it was such a joy. She was a great teacher before she started, but seeing her continue to grow and flourish has been fab. And I think we'll probably get into this, kind of how do you design a program that takes staff like she was, who was already really quite a strong ECT, and help them to flourish at the same time as an ECT who might need a little bit more support to get there, and kind of
Yeah,
their
right.
training perhaps has been a little bit different, and because their starting point might be different.
Yeah, it's interesting because like you've got the guys who are just straight in, like they go into school, or or maybe they go into a PGCE in September, and they've never set foot in a school before,
Yeah.
and then you got the guys who go in via the TA route, or they go in via like the cover supervisor route, which for
Hmm.
us in secondary, and then you have to scope the curriculum for them. Do you know what I mean? You have to
Yeah.
the ECT curriculum for them, and it's really interesting. I think that's what we need to explore. Like, what does that look like, and is it up to scratch? I think that's the way to think about it.
Mm,
And I also want the some tips for our ECTs and mentors who are listening. There might be ECTs at the moment who are like, how do I do great? And there might be mentors who are listening going, how do I do this? And it'd be great to kind of glean some tips and advice from from anyone who's out there, and those guys, if you're listening, then feel free to chip in and post some comments to us, like send us a text, and try and give them some little nuggets to go off with and explore. I think that'd be great today. So yeah, I think we should start with this one. I was doing some teacher tap searching,
oh, excellent.
and oh yeah, it was really interesting. And the last time there was a kind of report on this, it was called the first 18 months as teacher views in the on the early career framework, and it was done in 2022, I think.
Okay.
um or 2023. So essentially they found that there's some really interesting findings from it. It was really interesting. So let's have a look. One of the so a lot of people found having a mentor super helpful, right? And that's really, really positive. I'm glad that mentors are
Yeah.
helpful.
If they hadn't said that,
Yeah,
this would probably be a slightly
yeah,
different conversation.
yeah. I'm pretty glad that mentors are helpful, but it's not so rosy elsewhere. Like, a lot of people found and there's quite a few found it was just extra workload. Like large numbers of people found it was extra workload. They just felt like it was a challenge between like compliance and actually learning how to teach. They found that the materials that they got weren't particularly well adapted for their subject areas, and they weren't fully satisfied with the way the ECF kind of prepared them. Now I know we've had an overhaul, and this is the first year, isn't it, of the new programs, but it's fairly interesting. I mean, when I first started teaching, it was I just did the class. All we had was I started back in the day when there was just the PGCE. That's it, nothing else.
Yeah.
And you go to kind of 3 months at university, learning about Piaget, and Vygotsky. Oh my god! And then you and Skinner, obviously,
Maslow. Yeah.
and
Come on, gotta go
Maslow,
with it. Yeah.
and Bloom. Don't forget about Bloom.
Bloom.
And you learn, and
Absolutely.
you see all the pyramids, and then you'd go into school, and your mentor would go, right, you're gonna watch me for about a week, and then I'll let you do this starter, and then what'll happen is you'll take more and more lesson, and then gradually you'd take more and more of the lesson, and then off you go, right? And then the next placement would be that you'd spend a little bit longer. So that's the way I did traditional, like kind of early career teaching. I was an NQT. Well, then I did the NQT, but it was a year of that, and then off we go. And then obviously, I went out of the fold for a while. I kind of left the UK, came back, and we're ECTs now. And we've got the 2-year framework, and you're kind of in there, aren't you? You're in there pretty much all the time. And then you got Teach First as well, which is like, oh yeah, thanks for teaching. Thanks for choosing to teach. Your timetable's here. Off you go. Uh, and now we've got apprenticeships as well. You've got all these routes in, and all of them offer different things. And it's quite interesting to see what people are getting. I mean, what's your experience with the ECF framework?
Yeah, so I think if I think back to the most recent ECTs I had, and I think you're saying it's just changed again this year. It's definitely
Mm.
changed between the two ECTs, the ones that we had at Gunthorpe and
Yeah.
then the ones I'm having now, because it felt very much like you've just said, and I guess is reflected in that teacher tap survey, that initially there was this massive framework and everyone had to work through it in this set order, and almost we don't we're not going to listen or focus on what you as an ECT might need. We're going to go through everything and then we can say we've covered everything. And I
Yes.
remember the ECT mentor who was deputy head with me at Gunthorpe being like, this is madness. This ECT is absolutely brilliant at this area that we're going over. What she really needs is to know how to do this and that. Like, so she'd say, I think it was like routine, she'd got absolutely mastered from the start. But actually, what she needed to know was think about how she's going to support some of the SEN children more effectively. Well, except SEN doesn't come into spring too, or for
Yes.
argument's sake. And so she basically went, we're just going to do the bits we need to do. We're not like, we will catch up, we will find a way to get the cover, we'll do it. Because everything in her as a mentor went, this isn't right. We need to focus and use your time wisely on the things you need to do. And I think the change in terms of the most recent ECT was actually they kind of got that and they recognized that actually you need to do all of this over the year, but actually how and when you cover it, there was a little bit more flexibility. And I guess that might be our ECT provider that we worked alongside being different as well. But I think for me, that's what's so crucial about the role of that mentor is their confidence to be able to say, I know we need to cover this framework and we'll make sure we get through it. But do you know what? We might just need to prioritise what you as an ECT with the class of children you've got in front of you need.
Yeah, I've always found you got like two schools of mentor, right? You got the mentor who's like, we need to gather the evidence to meet all these standards, right? And do this, do this. I'm going to come watch you do this. And they stick to the program because that's what the program does. It doesn't. There's no like kind of modifications or contextualizations. It's kind of like term one this, term two this. I'm a ECT year two mentor. I've been doing it for a few years now. It's kind of like term one, we're focused on this thing. Half term two, we're focused on this thing. So there's two schools of mentors, isn't there? And there's the guys who go like, we're going to stick to that. No, no, no. We need to go collect the standards. I'm only going to watch you do this. I'm only going to feedback on that. The only conversations we're going to have is about that. And then I'll make sure that it's all written up on the little form. And then like, essentially we've got it. And then you've got the other mentor who's like, I'm going to teach you to be a good teacher. Right.
Yes.
And we're going to really, really nail what it is to be a good teacher. And then hopefully, and that's, I guess that's where there's this, I say there's two mentors, there's a sliding scale, right? Between the two, there's the like, and hopefully throughout all that, you will hit every one of those standards. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
now I was taught by the latter. I was taught by that person. Don't worry, I'm going to teach you how to be a good teacher. We'll hit the standards when we hit the standards. You won't need a massive evidence folder. We're going to get there. And I know someone who's taught the other way, and they were kind of stressed about getting the evidence folder together, and inevitably they kind of did, and it was a bit more formal, the process. And it's quite interesting that I don't know whether the framework kind of contextualizes. Well, I know that the people don't feel like the framework contextualizes enough, and I think maybe that's our first pieces of advice, isn't it? Maybe think about how to contextualize the framework in your setting. You know, I think that's where the most successful thing comes. So I think as a mentor, I think I've got pretty good at seeing where the ECT is at and then focusing specifically on a core area. When I started, I wasn't, because and then I used to be one of these guys who were like, right, we're on this half term, we're on that this half term, but now more and more I'm getting a lot better at going, I think that person needs to work on this. The theme is this. Maybe I'll just adapt and contextualize a little bit more, and maybe go into the gray a little bit more so that we can actually work on this here, because that's going to be super beneficial in terms of that colleague.
Do you
And make
think?
it better.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think the more we've done as educators and leaders on like the difference between coaching and mentoring, because I think that's had a massive impact in when I see really good mentors. Actually, they get that balance between when do I need to mentor this person and when do I need to go into a kind of coaching role and support them to be able to answer these things for themselves. Because I think that that's kind of changed the educational landscape a little bit in the last kind of 5-6 years in terms of that understanding of the difference between those and really training up school leaders or middle leaders to be effective coaches as well as mentors.
Yeah, that was really interesting. So, yeah, I think, yeah, that the coaching side of things, and especially instructional coaching, has changed the game for mentors. I
Mm.
mean, that it changed the game for me. Like, I became a better mentor when I read Get Better Faster and then Responsive Coaching. So those two little core texts made me like just so much better when I took those works and kind of applied them effectively to my mentoring, because initially I was like, oh yeah, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And then eventually, but what was going on is my my mentee was not developing any of the insights that they needed.
Yeah.
They were performing. So I would walk in the classroom, and maybe we were doing assessment for learning, and I would say, yeah, whiteboard's definitely the best way to do assessment for learning. And then I'd go into the classroom for the observation, like, oh, the whiteboards would be whipped out and suddenly they start doing it. Do you know what I mean? And there was all variations on what I'd actually said, because the person hadn't internalized what it means to actually utilize a whiteboard, why we use a whiteboard, what it means in terms of assessment theory, in terms of validity of inference, which is drawing conclusions about your assessment, etc. And so essentially what happened was, like, this person was performing, and more recently, instead of doing that, I go, right, so why, when you ask a question in class and you want to find out whether kids have understood, like, what tell me what is the best means of doing that, what's going to give you the most valid conclusion? Asking one student? Yeah. Well, what about asking all the students? Do you know what I mean? I'll have that conversation, and then that person will start to. I'm hoping they start to, like, understand why it's important, and then hopefully we see a better application of that technique. So I think that's been huge for me, understanding that when to coach, when to mentor, and being really responsive and switching between the two. That's been superb. And then, like, maybe with more developed ECTs, because I did have a more developed ECT last year, I was able to do a lot more of that coaching side of things, just asking questions. But also, I'm going to say it, I'm not sure all mentors have got the knowledge on how to do that. I'm not sure the mentor programs, because I've been on like a couple of them. I'm not sure the mentor programs actually give you that advice either. They don't give you a good grounding on how to kind of be responsive to your mentee and how to work with them.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because they just I need to get this right, because we do quite a lot of initial teacher training support as well, and you might be able to correct me here. Like, because one of the requirements to do initial teacher training was from the DFE was that the mentors needed to do 20 compulsory hours of training prior to being a mentor. Now, is that separate to the ECT or not? My brain's a little bit mush at the
Yeah.
moment.
So I did that. Yeah. You have to do the programs, right? You have to do all the training
Yeah.
programs. I did all the modules, but I'm not gonna lie to you, they don't prep you
Mm,
for actually going and watching practice, and being super diagnostic about what that person needs. And that's basically what a great mentor is. They're able to go in and hone in on what that person needs. So, and like, kind of, now I anticipate it, right?
yeah.
Like, I've got someone who started, and like, essentially, I'll go in and I'm like, probably gonna kind of have to look at this. This is my hypothesis, and then I'll go and I go, yeah, that was right. And so then I know where to start. Do you know, like, and I think quite a lot of the times, the program, the ECT program, and the ECT training that you get, and I'm not knocking it, but I think it's just developed kind of over time, and people have put it together, and it's not no one's fault. But I don't think it really preps you as a mentor to go in. I mean, really, as a mentor, you need to be able to forensically analyze someone's practice and really cut to the heart of what's going on. I don't know whether that's, like, ingrained in mentorship. I don't think it's there yet. I don't think the ECT program helps you to do that either, given the training. Like, in not in none of the videos I was watching that taught me how to do ECT mentoring. Did we ever watch a video and then go, right, this is what's going wrong, or that's going wrong?
Mm.
Do you know, we never watched a
Well,
video.
here's a question for how long you've been teaching, and some of the other listeners might relate. There used to be Teachers TV. Was this
Yes.
around when you were training? Can you
Oh,
remember
I
this?
love Teachers TV. Yes, it was great. In
Because
fact,
that's exactly what it was for, right?
yeah.
Was to be able to watch teachers and having those scenarios go, so let's talk about what we've seen and what's working and not.
In fact, recently I've actually used a Teachers TV clip for some CPD that I ran at school.
Interesting.
And it was super interesting actually looking back through those clips, because
Mm,
the other side of it is you got mentors who remember that old practice as well.
yeah.
And some of that is habitually ingrained, right? So if you go back and look at Teachers TV, there's like
I didn't even know it was still around. I might have
yeah,
to
I
dig
know,
some
no,
of
it's
that
on
out.
YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
If you hold on, let's do this first, and then I'll tell you about what I saw. Right? This show is brought to you by Hatchet Learning. Hatchet Learning. Sorry. This show is brought to you in partnership with Hatchet Learning, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit www. I'm going to spell it HACHETTE learning.com to explore the full range of titles. So that used to be John Cat. It's also brought to you by the Chalk and Talk podcast. If you're looking for another great education podcast, check out Chalk and Talk with Anna Stokey. Anna is a passionate advocate for evidence-based maths education for students of all ages. On her podcast, she talks about everything from effective teaching methods and how-to guides for teaching maths facts to tips for evaluating research show claims. She brings on top-notch guests, educators and researchers and policymakers, and discusses issues that directly impact teachers and students. Chalk and Talk is for anyone interested in education. Find it wherever you get your podcasts. AQA. AQA know teachers are real experts in the classroom. That's why they work closely with teachers like you, combining your insights with their assessment expertise to create resources, tools, training, and guidance that genuinely make a difference. They're the UK's most chosen assessment organisation, so chances are you already know their work. As we head into the new school year, AQA are focused on helping teachers feel supported and ready. If you want to find out more about how they are working with teachers like you, just head to their website or search AQA. We work with experts. Okay, Teachers TV. So it's don't worry, it's not an entity anymore. It's on YouTube. So I was watching a clip, right? I was watching a clip, and essentially, it was good to outstanding. That's what the title is, and
Yeah.
it was a whole lesson. It was amazing. It was brilliant. I don't know why we stopped doing that, filming whole lessons and making them public available. And there's quite a lot of those videos starting to emerge now. Have you noticed on X, right? And I was watching it, and essentially, this was a good teacher who is going to outstanding. And just watching the practice and the difference in practice was super interesting. So, for example, I watched a lesson where kids go into a room and there's a crime scene set up. She's like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, there's going to be a crime," and the kids are all talking in the back and all that business. And the kids are amazed by it, but then they suddenly start talking and stuff, and then they sit down and they try to glean it, and 4 or 5 kids say like loads of wrong stuff, and she's like, "Yes, maybe," and she never tells them any direct facts, and then
No,
this
that's not how
person,
we did it.
no, he didn't. No, and do you know what I mean? But then you got to remember that some mentors have been trained in that framework as well.
Mm.
And they're trained to look at teaching like that. So there isn't, like we say, there's an ECT framework, but there isn't a consistent framework. I mean, if you were to look at the teacher standards, like let's just think about that practice, right? Setting up a crime scene and like getting kids to discover knowledge about it. You might say that is setting goals that stretch and challenge pupils of all backgrounds, abilities, and dispositions, right? You might say that. You could interpret it like that. I would interpret it very, very differently. If I walked into an ECT classroom, they're like, "I've set up a crime scene. What can you discover?" And then spent an hour discovering the crime scene, and then like really, they were supposed to teach a lesson about chromatography or blood groupings. Like, I'd be pretty kind of upset by that. Not upset by that, but I'd be pretty concerned by that. I would be kind of like saying to that person, "Well, you spent an hour doing that, but was it really setting high expectations and goals that stretch pupils of all backgrounds, abilities, and dispositions, because actually there was 4 pupils in there that had higher cultural capital, which were able to do what you wanted them to do, and then there was like 3 PP kids who didn't even know what blood splatter analysis was, and by the end of the lesson they still didn't. Do you know what I mean? Like, so there's a whole interpretation of these standards which I don't think is very useful. So I think the other thing as a mentor is interpreting these standards effectively, and knowing what you really want to see, so you can go look for it. And if you're an ECT, talking to your mentor about what these standards look like. Now, I recently had a conversation with an ECT, and they were really stressed. They said to me, "Beejesh, I just you're telling me this, and I've got to meet all these standards. I've got to evidence all these standards. I feel like I'm being pulled in 2 directions." And that's really interesting because it resonates with what that teacher tap survey found, right? Being pulled towards compliance, and then being pulled towards like what the context. And I said to him, "Look, this is the thing, right? I think it all boils down to this. Number 1, managing attention. Number 2, making sure that they have a change in long-term memory.
Yeah.
Do those 2 things, and I think you'll hit every standard. Like, learn how to do those things super effectively, and you'll hit every standard. So, for example, establish a safe, stimulating environment for pupils rooted in mutual respect. If you have strategies which manage attention in the room so that the attention is what you want them to attend to, then they will not be attending to things like, for example, like making the environment unsafe. Because let's face it, kids' behavior makes the environment unsafe, right? And so if they're
Yeah,
attending
absolutely.
to what you want them to do, then essentially they'll be making you'll have like made the environment safe. And it sounds really, really simple, but actually there's a whole suite of things that you need to do for them to attend to what you want them to. Do you know what I mean? Goals and stretch the challenge of pupils of all backgrounds. Well, if you manage what they attend to effectively, you will be able to do that. And that's the curriculum. Do you know what I mean? So you're managing the attention to what you want them to attend to. Every lesson, you're going to get them to attend to your really, really stretching curriculum, and you can really, really think about what they're going to attend to. Demonstrate consistently the positive attitudes, values, and behavior which are expected of pupils, like paying attention in class, making sure that you revise things so they stay in long-term memory. Those are the positive attitudes. You know, attending to the needs of like a person in your class who might not be feeling well today or something along those lines, right? If you manage attention effectively, and if you're attending to politeness as well, if that's part of your curriculum, because let's face it, behavior is a curriculum. Anyone who tells you otherwise just doesn't understand behavior. It's taught, it's not like instilled. It has to be explicitly taught. Well, if you're attending to the curriculum, you can do that. So suddenly we've just nailed number 1, right?
Yeah, no,
We've
it makes sense.
it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
nailed number 1 with attention. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then promoting good progress. Well, that's like how has there been a change in long-term memory, right? How are you going to get them to change that long-term memory? Is there a retrieval strategy? Is the curriculum built so that like it revisits concepts, so long-term memory, and is it interleaved well enough? Things like that. So, like I said, it sounds really simple, but on the face of it, like get them manage the attention, and get them to remember more, and get them to change their long-term memory. But then you've got like this whole wide suite of things, and then you can nail your standards, and you don't have to worry about it, right? So when an ECT first starts, well, one of the things is just making sure they attend to you talking when you come in the room. So if they're talking to each other, they're not attending to you. And so how do you do that? Well, you have a nice 1, 2, and so you have a nice, so you front load your means of participation first. You front load, you go, when I say 3, I want you in absolute silence looking at me. 3, 2, 1, and then you pause and you make them accountable so that they attend to what you say by looking across the room and scanning, and you make sure they see you looking, right? And there's your first strategy for that person who's gone into the classroom, because they see teachers doing magic on a day-to-day basis,
Yes.
right? And they go, and then they walk in the classroom and they go, I'm going to do that magic. And then first day they come out and they go, I wasn't, they weren't listening to me. I must have said like 5 words that kids heard today. Do you know what I mean? That's the biggest thing that ECTs who go in fresh have. That's the biggest problem they have. They won't listen to me, and that's. But then nothing in the ECT program. Well, I don't know. I don't know actually. An apprentice in my department went to some training on Thursday, and that's what they spent the whole day on. They spent the whole
Okay.
day on practicing that and getting it down, so that when he went into the classroom on Friday, he could do it. And I was like, because every now and then they go on these things. He spent the day out of school, and I was like, what did they do?
Mm.
What happened? Did they talk about like Piaget and Vygotsky? And he was like, no. That's what I was expecting, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
that's the kind of diet I got. Yeah. Oh, Piaget. He looked at his son and his brother. And then his brother learnt loads because his son was teaching him. And I'm like, yeah. Do you know what I mean? That's the sort of thing that I got on my PGCE program. My PGCE program was very good, though. We had a little bit of that for compliance, but then the guy who ran the course just went off piste and got people to practice just standing in front of people and getting command of the room, right? Like it was called back when I started. But yeah, essentially I was expected to hear that, and he came in and he said, no, we're doing this, and I was like, ooh, this is a positive move forward. Like, so this is something you can do
Mm.
tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? You didn't just go
Mm.
and learn like all of this educational theory that you can't apply. I'm not saying that's not important, but if you learn some educational theory and you don't know what to change in the classroom the day after, I'm going to say that training was useless.
I mean, useless is a strong word, but if it has no practical implications in the short term, I'll give you that one.
Yeah, it's trivia. They've taught you trivia, haven't
Mm.
they? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if I learn about constructivism, uh, like the theory of constructivism for learning, and then tomorrow I don't know how to apply that, and then I I think about constructivism and try and come up with my own way and like miss the mark, then like number one, I could be wasting a whole like period of time. If it doesn't work, and I know it doesn't work, I could be wasting a whole period of time like trying to develop this practice and then like getting it wrong
Hmm.
and embedding it and then seeing if it works for a long period of time, and then like I've like wasted the time of me and those kids. And then the other side of it is like I might not even know when to see whether it works or not, and then I might just embed it into my long-term habits, and then that might just become a long-term habit. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
for example, someone teaches me about constructivism tomorrow, and I go, "Well, yeah, that's constructing the ideas yourself, isn't it?" So every one of my teaching sequences is going to start with a question that they don't know the answer to, and I'm going to like just tease it out of them. Do you know what I mean? So I stand up in front of kids, and I go, "Define solubility." And the kids don't know, they all look at me with a blank face. And I go, you there, boy, what do you think solubility means? Sol, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then I
Mm.
just ingrain that, and I think, oh, great, they're all thinking, aren't they? Because it was like no one knew the answer, so they're all thinking hard, and then that just becomes part of my practice. Or they're all thinking hard, and then someone challenges me and goes, you know, when you ask that question first that no one knows the answer to, or there's that one boy who's got like parents at home who are like solicitors with science A levels, and they told him, and so he put his hand up, and then the kids who have got like parents who aren't that wealthy didn't know. Like I don't think that's a great practice. And you go, yeah, but they're all thinking. Do you know what I mean? That this could be something that's ingrained in part of your practice. So what we need to do is we need to like this is the problem I think with the ECT framework. Sometimes when you just get a vacuous concept and you don't know how to apply that, then you can end up interpreting it yourself. And I think the key is to 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 go and find out if you're stuck in this position and you go to a training session as an ECT and you go, okay, what do I do tomorrow? Well, you probably need to go and talk to one of your mentors or someone like some weathered person in your department and go, they told me about this. What is best from your position? And go to the person with like who like just who looks like a magician in your department. Do you know what I mean? And they also kind of the kids do really well at the end of the term, and go to them and go like, what do they mean? What do you do when it comes to this? And maybe that's the other thing you do. And why do you do that? And how do you do that? And then just break it down. Can I watch you do it? Do you know what I mean? I think that's possibly that if you're going to stick to the modules, that's possibly the best thing to do afterwards. I know actually the mentoring framework is set up like that. So your first mentor meeting, you talk about the practice, you talk about the input. Then your second meeting, what you do is you go observe the practice, or the ECT observes the practice. And then what happens is you try and apply your own practice, and then your mentor observes you. That's the kind of model for it's a bit like coaching, right? At the moment, but I think maybe it needs some more specifics around it. I've been talking for quite a while, Claire. Do you want to?
Yeah, sorry. So what I was thinking, as you were talking, is that I think we were trying to think, right, what are the tips, aren't they? What are the takeaways for ECTs and for mentors and for what they're looking like? And I think we've touched quite a lot on for the mentors,
Yeah.
how to get that coaching right, how to support those ECTs with where they're actually at, to listen to what they're doing on their training and times as well, because I think that's what you were kind of saying about your apprentice as well, that actually it's really important to engage with them and to help them see what have they done and how they can practically apply that, because if the quality of that training hasn't been spot on, they might not necessarily know straight away how to do that. And I was thinking about ECTs who might be feeling overwhelmed at the moment, and relationships with mentors can be interesting, can't they? I don't know what it's like at secondary, but often in primary, you've got someone who's working quite closely to you or within the same kind of key stage, and therefore that can be tricky if you you've got to get that relationship right because you're working really closely with them, or they're in a totally different part of the school, and the way that it works there doesn't seem to be the same as how it works for you where you are. And so I guess I'm interested actually in what that looks like in secondary and the difference between that. Like, are ECT mentors always in the same department, or does that sometimes just be one person who mentors all the ECTs across the school? Because I'm wondering if there's a kind of primary secondary learning from each other kind of situation going on here.
Yeah, so that's what the Teacher Tap survey found as well. In science, in science especially, the ECT mentor wasn't matched in terms of department, which was interesting. So, and maybe in terms of like the phase in in primary, do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, but then I don't know. You guys tend to chop and change between, well, different schools do different things, don't they?
Yeah.
But
No, but people do tend to get experience across more than one phase, certainly over
yeah,
their career.
yeah. No, I wouldn't go teaching the drama department. Do you know, like, so if I was to like have if I was a ECT mentor to a drama teacher, I think that would be a significant challenge. However, well, I don't know actually, because like I know my core practice, do you know, like, and then I would then default to the head of department to think about the subject specifics. I think honestly, every head of department should be involved in their mentors training.
Mm.
I honestly think that, because like that head of department knows what the practice across the department needs to look like, and also knows subject specific wise what everyone needs to work on. And I think that's paramount to an ECT's training. So almost an ECT should have like their mentor within department, and then their head of department. What would be wonderful is if a head of department could mentor. Like I do. I mean, I do. I'm a head of department and I'm a mentor. And there's a specific reason why. Like I know what I want things to look like in the department, and if I foster that through the new people who join,
Mm.
then we're more likely to get it.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
so that's why I mentor. That's why as a head of department, I'm like hands up, first person. I will clear schedule space to do this. You know, I will work at home to spend an hour with an ECT or spend two with an ECT, like helping them to be the teacher that like that best that suit like meets the needs of our kids. And I don't know what that looks like kind of I guess primaries like very different, because someone knows all the phases and stuff, and then kind of they can they can tailor the guidance and the support. However, I guess you've got your specialists, right?
Yeah. So you've got people who are more confident in certain areas, and that can be just from time spent there, or just their kind of natural preference. But yeah, it is interesting that kind of, and we're kind of going off ECTs a little bit, I guess, that what people learn from being alongside each other. So we are very clear that whenever we do kind of teaching and learning approaches, or whatever that kind of whole school CPD is, that our ECTs are in that, and that they have as much to give as to learn. So when we set up kind of triads and things like that across the school, in terms of right, we're going to look at, so I think I said last time, this year we're looking at questioning and feedback, because it flows really nicely from our priority of practice and retrieval last year. How do we take all of those stuff and implement it? And so we're looking at different strategies to do that feedback and get that right. And we just had some wonderful conversations during our inset days when we were going, right, okay, questioning and feedback. Sorry, just 1 second.
Oh, she's gone.
Sorry, I am
Go on.
back. I just needed to cough. Apologies. Got better do that off air. So so we had some incredible conversations about, right, what does that look like? What do we think is really important in teaching and learning? Got people to do a bit of a diamond 9 of kind of the strategies within the walkthroughs that might be looking at, and just the richness of the conversation. But and one of the big hot topics was cold calling, and everyone will have an opinion, which is great. But actually the ECT was there going, I've only ever learnt cold calling. That was
Yes.
absolutely what we were drilled to do. And then you've got the much more experienced teachers going, don't really know, not
Yeah.
really sure about that, quite like my normal way of doing it. And you've got the SEND specialist there going, yeah, for some of our anxious children, cold calling can be a real challenge. And then just there's brilliant dialogue going across going, yes, but if we get our culture right, then actually cold calling doesn't need to feel pressured
Yes.
and stressed. And actually, if we get our teachers knowing our children and that kind of relationships right, then again, the preparation work that you do alongside it means that it, basically they were saying it's got this bad rep and it doesn't
Yeah.
need to have. But our ECTs, with all of that knowledge of what that meant and how that had been drilled into them, brought a really fresh, healthy perspective to the discussion and dialogue that was really good to have. And it also means, because then we set up those triads across the school, right, and those teachers go and spend time watching that other teacher in their group using those strategies that they've planned and tried and tested. And then so often you get teachers in upper school, year 5 or 6, having spent a bit of time in year 1 or reception going, wow, if
Yeah.
the children down there are doing that, why am I not giving that a go? Because
Yeah.
actually, if we can train 5-year-olds to be able to think and answer questions and say it better, why aren't we expecting our year 5s and 6s to do it? And vice versa, looking at across the school, across the phases, because the core principles of high quality teaching and learning don't change.
At AQA, we work with the UK's largest teacher network to shape the future of assessment. With teachers for students, we ask questions today that matter tomorrow.
Get a head start on your fresh start with Bloomsbury Education. With 30% off all our books till the end of September, this back-to-school sale is your chance to stock up on CPD titles, classroom resource banks, lesson ideas, and practical solutions to every teacher's pain points. Browse titles on sale from the Like a Ninja series, The Week Junior, and Let's Talk Picture Books. Perfect for the new school year. From leadership to inclusivity and maths to mental health, Bloomsbury Education has books for every step of your teaching journey. Welcome back to school at bloomsbury.com/back-to-school sale.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Compel Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to capowprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles.
Yeah, and don't forget, like the ECTs of this generation are getting cognitive load theory. Do you know what I mean? And the science of learning. That's what they're getting, which
Yeah.
is super interesting as well. So they're bringing that all in, and that's really interesting to encounter, because when I turn around and go like cognitive overload, like the ECTs know what I'm talking about before
Yeah.
some of my more experienced
Yeah.
teachers, and it's like that's really cool. Like, and then the strategy is really interesting. I think one of the things we're possibly getting wrong in terms of, well, let's give some ECTs some advice, right? I reckon, so one of the things you'll have to do as an ECT is go observe a lesson, right? And
Yeah.
and as a novice in the field, like I love this story that like there's a person sat at a table with a football coach, right? Premier League football coach, and they're just having dinner, and there's some football on in the background. But what the coach does is they're just eating a dinner, and like glances across at the screen and goes, the left back's out of position. We're going to score in a minute. And then goes back to his food. And lo and behold, there's the cheer of the score on the telly. And the person who's watching him goes, well, how did you know that? And he goes, just watched it. I've seen it so many times, right? So our ECTs are unfortunately not in that unique position. In fact, they're quite far from it. And so I think one of the biggest tips I would tell an ECT is go and watch a lesson with your mentor or with a really, really knowledgeable, experienced teacher, really experienced practitioner. Don't go on your own the first time. Go and watch a really experienced teacher and try and dissect every micro move they do with your mentor or with that colleague who's gone with you. Like, dissect it, and I reckon you'll find probably like 10 things that person has done, at least if it's a great lesson, which made it appear like magic, like made the teaching appear magic. Because like quite often ECTs, they call it, they go and watch people and they go, it was amazing, the kids just, I don't know what they were doing. And I go, because you're not trained to, because you're not trained to look for it. And really, as an ECT, you need to get really good at looking at what experienced colleagues do to make things happen in the room. And it's crazy things. It's crazy things like saying silently before like giving an instruction, right? So the kids know to do it silently. It's like really, really small strategies like that you can easily pick up and go. But in the room, you go, you watch, and your eye will be on the misdirection. Your eye will be on the
Mm.
teacher. Your eye will be on the teacher giving the whiteboards to the person at the front. You won't hear them go silently when I say go. I'd like you to hand out these whiteboards. You won't hear them say silently. You'll just hear them say, give out these whiteboards, and then the kids hand them out in silence. And you go, there's some sort of voodoo going on here. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
and I tried that, and I said, and you said, give out these whiteboards, and then you said silently, and by that point the kids are already starting,
Yeah.
whiteboards are handed out, and half of the whiteboards are on one side of the classroom, and one person's gone, give me a pen, and the other person's going, oh, I'm not having that whiteboard. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you go, it didn't work. So that's my advice for an ECT. If this week or next week or the week after you're asked to do an observation, go with a super experienced colleague and go watch a super experienced colleague and try and pick out those micro moves that they are doing to make the magic happen. And there'll always be a micro move, I guarantee it. Claire, how long have you been teaching?
Oh, yeah, nearly 20 years now.
Nearly 20 years. Claire, you'll know the micro moves.
Yeah.
Like, I did this for 15 years. I have developed the micro moves, didn't realize I was doing some of them, didn't realize I needed to do some of them. It's insane, isn't it? Right? That, like, I know that kids don't just do what you tell them to. once, like the first day, like it's
Yeah.
by magic. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen unless you've got the dream like class from the advert, right? From the
Yeah, but
teaching
at the
advert.
same, but even then, right? Like there's presence, isn't there? There's ways of communicating and talking, and I think you're so right because the quality sometimes what you learn as an ECT, or I'll be honest, even as a more experienced teacher, isn't necessarily what you see in the moment, but what you learn comes from the dialogue and the conversation you have
Yeah,
afterwards. And I think that's the power of, you know, observing someone alongside someone else. Um, and I just think there's real value in uh, recognizing the quality of dialogue that you can have with and alongside teachers when you observe teachers, because
yeah,
getting that teacher in as part of that conversation can be
yeah,
really powerful too, right?
yeah,
Because you might be talking about things and recognizing things, and you've got someone alongside you. Actually, if you can sit with the person who you were observing and talk through, because that's really empowering, but it's also, it's nice to hear, because some of the things that you'll pick up on, that teacher who's doing them won't even realize they're doing it, and they could be some of the really powerful things, and brilliant to name them and bring them to light and go, oh yeah, that was really effective. And I've actually spent quite a lot of time over the last couple of weeks teaching,
okay.
which has been fab, and I have absolutely loved it. And I love getting back in the classroom, and I love spending time with children and doing that. Um, but I found myself recognizing things that work, because whenever you walk in front of a brand new group of children, um, you definitely get that sense of, how is this going to work now?
Yes, yeah,
what,
yeah,
what are this group of children who I've not taught before going to respond, and I need to do? I've taught all sorts. I've taught some science about categorizing living things. I've taught some history about why World War II start. I've also taught an art lesson in terms of getting some really abstract art around maps work doing.
yes.
So yes, it's been a fun old week, but in all of that, I've just loved the quality of the dialogue with the teachers before and afterwards.
It's probably more pronounced as well, like in primary, right? Because when you've got like 4-year-olds stood in front, or not even stood in front of you, like just milling around in front of you, you go, you stand there and you go, how 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 am I ever going to get them to do this? I can imagine being on your first day and going, how am I ever going to get this to work? And then like at least in secondary, there is some sort of self control that comes with a group of year sevens who push into your room on the first day and like look at you kind of expectingly. But 4-year-olds don't do that, so I can imagine it's more pronounced down there, and I can imagine the magic has to, or sorry, the setup for the magic has to happen more consciously.
Yeah, and it's so obvious which teachers have got that routine right. Yeah.
Mm,
Because actually how they respond to that kind of the agreed things that you've got across school,
mm,
or the kind of just the general things of, right, we're gonna get children from here to there and this is what it's gonna look like. And you can explain it to them. And if they straight away pick that up and go for it, you know this is working. This is right. This is their standard bread and butter for the last, week and a half. This is what they've been doing. If not, then that's really obvious too. But actually, that's okay because it's early enough that we can get that right.
yeah,
So there's huge amounts of positive interactions. It's lovely for the children to be able to see them out of the playground again and say, "Well, how's that going? What's that doing?" And it's just great to have those interactions with staff as well.
yeah. I think also we aren't a profession which can afford not to train teachers up like like really really well, because that 5-year thing is crazy. Like
Mm,
quitting after 5 years is bonkers, and I think that's down to not being trained well enough. Do you know what I mean? Like, because your stress can be drastically reduced
yeah,
if you know how to make the magic tricks happen.
yeah.
I think that's what that's the biggest piece of advice I'm going to give to my ECTs and to our mentors. If you're an ECT, go find out how the magic happens, because there's always something. It's not magic. And mentors, make sure your ECTs find out how the magic happens, right?
Yeah.
Make sure if the coin disappears, they know what the sleight of hand is and how the sleight of hand's going and how the misdirection happens. Do you know what I mean? Like, so if a class is silent, make sure you know exactly what that teacher has said and done up until that point that has made that happen day in, day out. Right. This show is brought to you by Hatchet Learning. Bear with me. Publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools all around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit www.hatchettelearning.com to explore the full range of titles. AQA know teachers are the real experts in the classroom. That's why they work closely with teachers like you, combining your insight with their assessment expertise to create resources, tools, training and guidance that genuinely make a difference. They're the UK's most chosen assessment organisation, so chances are you already know their work. And as we head into a new school year, AQA are focused on helping teachers feel supported and ready. If you want to find out more about how they're working with teachers like you, just head to their website or search AQA. We work with experts. Yeah, so go find the magic. That's what I'm saying. And the other thing is, quite often, I think you might look in the wrong direction to the resources rather than the actions and the planning. I think, honestly, like for any ECT starting out, I mean, number one, you should be given a good set of resources. Apologies if you haven't got access to that. But like, probably my advice there would be to find someone with a good set of resources that you can use and steal, because you shouldn't be expected to make everything from scratch. That's not fair. And realistically, you should be focused on what you're going to say and what you're going to do in that space, because it's performance that we do it on a day-to-day basis. It's a performative profession. We're footballers out there on the pitch, and like, realistically, you shouldn't be thinking about the rules of the game and which pitch you're going to play on and where you're going to get your football from. You should be thinking about the moves you're going to make out there. I think that's really important. I think most ECTs look at the wrong stuff in the first few months, which is the resource, and also hide behind it. Do you know what I mean? Like, because it is hard. It is hard. I did it. I hid behind my PowerPoints for the first few weeks until I realized that they weren't going to get me as far as I needed to, and I needed to think about the moves. But realistically, I think find someone with a good set of resources. Don't spend your time doing that. And if you spend an hour instead of creating a PowerPoint or a set of flashcards, if you spend an hour in front of the mirror rehearsing what you're going to say tomorrow, I think that's better time spent.
And it's interesting because I think the more we make most of things like AI to help us to really tighten up our resources, hopefully that will dominate less of ECT's time, because it can also tell you all the misconceptions at a glance, right? There's ways of using these things powerfully to make a difference. I think the other thing, just while we've got a few more minutes, is I think we need to help our ECTs to be more self-reflective and less self-critical, because I think naturally a lot of teachers I know are very reflective, but that reflection sometimes for ECTs is all the negative, right? Oh, that didn't work, that child can't do it, oh, it's too hard, or just really that kind of mindset of everything that I thought I should be able to do should just be working, and if it's not, something's wrong. And going, rather than seeing it in that kind of negative framing, is there a way to be more reflective and identify, so what was it that wasn't working, why wasn't it working, and what might I do differently, or how might I set this out differently in order for more success to come? And I worry, if you think about the 5 year kind of, like you say, staff leaving, is it because there's this expectation that things are going to improve in that time, or it's going to be less challenging? I don't know, but I see a lot of, especially younger ECTs, I guess, really focusing on that negative criticism, rather than actually what would reflecting on this in a different mindset help me?
Yeah, but I think that's the problem with the hangover of judgment that comes. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think
Mm.
the whole career has got a hangover of judgment around it. And it's difficult. And then also, there's nothing like having your ego bruised by 32 um,
Yeah.
12-year-olds. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
On a Thursday afternoon. That's that's huge, right? And you take it personally. You also understand the gravity of the role and your civic duty to the people in the community that you serve. I understand where it all comes from, but in the end, everyone has to start somewhere. And in the end, like small things will get you to where you need to go. I think also the myth that teachers are born, not created, doesn't help either. I think some mentors have that myth. I think like some providers have that myth. I think some schools still have that myth. I honestly think every great teacher can be created because there's certain moves that you can help them to make in the classroom, and they can go for it. The only teachers who might not be suitable are people who suffer from that chronic kind of stress and can't get over that. I think that's quite a difficult thing for someone to overcome.
Mm.
But honestly, I think if you don't suffer, if you can get over that chronic anxiety about like not being great and about like and the cut and thrust of the classroom, then I think you honestly can be taught to be brilliant. You know, and even then, like I think some of that stress can be reduced by just knowing exactly what you need to do in the classroom, like minute, second by second, scripted, right? Like come in the classroom, sit down in silence, and then what you do is you just let five in the classroom, let them settle, let the next five in the classroom, etc. Right? And you just know how to do those little techniques, those little strategies, like so that don't call out before you like end before you kind of ask a question, or or the little tight moves that teachers make. I think you can get someone to build up that suite. I think the only teachers who probably won't be created are like those guys who suffer from like, and it's an odd person who suffers so much stress and anxiety that they just can't overcome that barrier because it's hard. Do you know what I mean? It's
Mm.
you are going out on display all day. You are, if you got 5 lessons, you are doing
Yeah, yeah,
five
absolutely.
five performances today, and if you can't get over that, I don't know how you would teach someone to get over that 5 performances and getting over the initial anxiety and the stress. They're the only people I really really worry about, and then I go, hang on a second, if it affects your mental well-being that much, then yeah, there's other stuff to do. But like, I think most teachers who like, okay, I can get over this. If you can put your ego to one side,
Mm. Yeah.
then I reckon you can make it. Do you know what I mean? And like I say, if you can take a lashing from 32 years, 12-year-olds on a
Mm.
Thursday afternoon and come back out and go, tomorrow I'm going to take 80% of that lashing,
Yeah.
and you're going to do great. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
And then
hard though, I get it. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, that's what you've got to do. You've got to come out with that mentality. Like, yes, everyone has it. I don't know any teacher who has never had that experience of being in front of 32 kids, just just making you doubt the fact that
Yeah,
you can
but Beejesh, I now need you to imagine that you had that same group all day. So you don't just have to
oh
get through
god,
an
yeah.
hour or two of them.
Yeah.
You've got them all day, every day, right?
I don't know. That's the thing. If you're an ECT in that position, go talk to anyone in department and go, tell me the story about the class that broke you. And and everyone will tell you the story. They will. In fact, you might need to get a brew and sit down for an hour. It's therapy.
Mm.
So there you go, ECTs. Hopefully, and ECT mentors. Hopefully, there's some tips and tricks, and hopefully we talk about some things that help you support your ECTs. I think get out there with a mentor, watch lessons. Don't watch lessons on your own. I think ECTs help. You're the people with knowledge. Claire said this. Go into
Mm.
your departments and share it. Other people with the most cutting edge knowledge. You can have that under your belt. And I think like learning the micro moves behind teaching, and also just learning to take just learning to take 20% less every time you go into the classroom and getting it down. in that way, taking it in small bites, and you can survive, honestly.
Sounds good. Follow Beejesh for more magic tricks. I'm looking forward to seeing these on X over the coming few
They're all
weeks.
stolen. I'm not going to tell you from where, but they're all stolen.
Some sleights of hands are coming.
I'm a thief. I'm a thief. I've made my way into the magician's circle. I'm stealing all their tricks. That's what I suggest you do as well, ECTs. Right, should we wrap up there,
Good
Claire?
stuff. I think so. Thanks so
Go and
much
get
for
some
this
rest,
evening,
Claire.
guys. Yeah, cheers.
Right.
All right, take
We'll
care.
see you next month.
Yeah, indeed. Looking forward to it. All right.
Bye.
Thanks, then. Bye.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.